How many of you know the story of Sodom? Okay, so it's not totally foreign. Again, for the sake of time, I don't want to read the whole thing. The essential story is God comes to Abraham and says, Abraham, I am going to judge this city. Okay, so he says this ahead of time. And then there's this sort of long dialogue. Abraham goes down to the city. God, for several reasons mentioned in the text, wants Abraham to see this. I think largely because God is shaping an entire nation, and Abraham's the start of it. He wants him to understand how serious God is about living rightly. And again, that says that in the text. That's not just my opinion. Takes Abraham down there. He's going to destroy the city. And there's this incident where these angels who come to carry out God's will, this message, meet Lot, who is relative to Abraham in the city, goes into Lot's house. The men of the city, old and young, see this. They come to the house, knock on the door. Lot answers, and they say, give us your men that we might know them. And he says, do not do this horrible, detestable thing. They have come under my house. In the ancient world, the Semitic world, hospitality is a big deal. If someone comes under your house, in your tent, you have to protect them by virtue of your own life. You must lay down your own life. So it's a big deal who you eat with. It's not like today. And so he says, do not do this wicked thing. And then he says this bizarre statement, I have daughters who have never known a man. Take them and know them. And they said, who do you think you are? Now you're judging us. You came in as an alien, and now you're judging us. We're going to do worse to you than what we were going to do to them. The angels grab the man, pull him inside the house, strike the man on the outside with blindness. They're not able to get in. The family leaves. The city is destroyed. That's sort of a super quick paraphrase of the story of what's going on. There's a big debate as to what is the sin of Sodom, and you see that under letter A there. And here are the different options that people have proposed. Is it homosexual practice? Number 2, is it general wickedness? This is mentioned in the previous chapter of the city's general wickedness. Number 3, is it the rape of the guest? So it's not homosexual actions per se, but it's homosexual gang rape. Is it, number 4, the desire to cohabitate with angels? There's a reference in Jude that people will point out to say they long for strange flesh. Well, that means angelic beings rather than simply homosexual activity. And then number 5, is it inhospitality? Are they being judged because of the way in which this city broke the ancient law of hospitality? If you want to kind of make notes on any of those, number 5 and number 3, by the revisionist, again, more liberal perspective, those are their options. Those are the ones that they would say, the Bible is really arguing that what's going on here is inhospitality and or gang rape. That's what God is condemning. Not simply homosexuality, but it's more 3 and 5. Letter B, again, you see a couple of people there who hold to that, their books. You can look at their literature, read it. I've read some of it. Here's their basic argument from this passage. Number 1, yada is the Greek word for no. And if you look in the passage, it says, bring them out to us that we may yada them, that we may know them. Well, here's the argument. Yada occurs 943 times in the Old Testament, which the whole Old Testament, of course, is written in Hebrew. Only 10 of them, of 943, refer to physical intercourse. Okay? So we're looking at what are the chances that this word refers to physical intercourse versus some other way of knowing. Therefore, it would be better to translate it so that we might interrogate them. This is the idea that the sin of Sodom is not the desire to cohabitate in a homosexual way. It was the idea that they were breaking this law, that these men came into their city and they said, we don't know who they are. Are they going to try to attack us? Are they spies? We want to interrogate them. Well, that would break the customary law of someone's coming to your house and you have to protect them. So that is what the suggestion is. Okay, that's sort of the basic argument. A second way to look at it is the sin of Sodom was not monogamous homosexual practice, which according to this view there's nothing wrong with, but it's the gang rape of Lot's guest, again, and or the desire to cohabitate with angels, one of those two. Any questions about that position? I want to respond to that, but any questions about that, about those two ideas? Do they make sense anyway? Do you kind of get them? Here's a response. Here I think is a couple reasons why those are not good options of interpretation. Number 1, under letter C, Lot's offer to the men of the city to yada the women instead of the men makes most sense if there's a sexual connotation to the word. Meaning, what sense would it be if he said, I want to interrogate those men, and he said, no, don't do that. These women have never been interrogated before. Interrogate them. You see what I mean? I mean, seriously, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So given the text, does it fit? Does it make sense? Or is it sort of odd? Does it sort of stand out and you go, that doesn't, why would he say that? Also, what many of the proponents of this view don't tell you is even though there's 900 plus times this word appears and only 10 refer to sexual intercourse, 6 of the 10 are all in the book of Genesis. Okay, so again, you've got to realize the author is using this word a lot, no, to refer to sexuality. And 2 of them are in this story, that very case. No, we want to know them. No, my daughters have never known any man. Know them. Okay, so, and clearly there seems to be a sexual connotation to the know my daughters. My daughters have not known. So that seems to be a better explanation of that. Number 2, the acts of gang rape and or desiring human/angelic intercourse could not have been the cause of God's judgment on Sodom. You know why? Because God decided to destroy Sodom long before that incident, didn't he? Remember? The angels came to the city bringing the message of judgment. He did not decide to judge after they were there. So that option, again, it's an impossibility. It can't be the correct way to interpret that passage. It's clearly his decision to judge it came long before their arrival or their visitation. So it could not have, those 2 options just don't work, even though people, again, will oftentimes suggest that they do. A third reason why I think this is a bad option is if you are a follower of Jesus, if you believe the New Testament is authoritative in what it says, the New Testament comments on the sin of Sodom and does identify it, at least in part, as sexual sins. Again, example, book of Jude, that we'll get to here in a minute. In fact, I think there's a footnote on this page or the next for you there and what that passage is. So the New Testament does also comment on it. If you accept that as authoritative, that's at least a pretty good argument. Letter D. What do we know about the sin of Sodom as described in the Bible? And let's kind of run pretty quickly through this. Number 1, the sin of Sodom was, quote, indeed great, and their sin was exceedingly grave. In fact, there were not even 10 righteous people found in the city. Now, if you think about that, if that includes Sodom, if that includes Lot and his family, that means aside from Lot and his family, there were not even maybe 3 or 4 righteous people in the city. Number 2, the purpose of the judgment was to, as I mentioned earlier, it was to be a warning to Abraham as this fledgling nation is founded and formed. Again, 2 Peter and Jude 1, it's to be an example to those who live ungodly lives thereafter. Number 3, 2 Peter 2. Listen to this. Listen to the way in which the New Testament authors talk about the sin of Sodom. This might clear it up for us what was the sin. 2 Peter 2 says, Lot was, quote, oppressed by the sensual conduct of unprincipled men. Lot, by what he saw and heard, felt his righteous soul tormented day after day with their lawless deeds. These people were, quote, those who indulged the flesh in its corrupt desires and despised authority. Okay, so listen to those descriptives to help us. If it is unclear from Genesis itself, these should at least help us clear it up a little bit. And then Jude 1:7 describes Sodom's actions as gross immorality and going after strange flesh. Now again, some people say, well, strange flesh must mean angelic. Because in the context of Jude, he has just been speaking about angels who left their proper abode, he says, meaning who sort of forgot what their job was. The word angel means messenger. They forgot that they were messengers. They sort of thought they were the message. This is referring to fallen angels. And then later he talks about this. And so the argument is, well, clearly what they were judged for was desiring cohabitation with angels. That's what's wrong. Again, a problem is there's no indication that these men knew they were angels, is there? Even Lot himself, as far as we know, wasn't even aware these were angels. So as far as they know, these are just men. In fact, the text calls them men once they're in the city. So would God condemn them for doing something that they didn't know they were doing wrong? It's unlikely to me anyway. I can't see that he would. That doesn't seem to be coherent with his character.